Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for coming on this slightly gray day. It seems that the heaven is blocking out the sun, so you've brought it here with you yourselves. Now, amazingly, I don't know if you guys noticed, but a man just walked by and told us the end of the world was coming. I think he didn't actually convey what we all know, which is the end of this system is coming. A system that feeds on itself is not sustainable. It can't live. We've been trying to say this for years, and for some people, there's a sense of fatigue, wondering if we are being heard, and asking questions about how effective we've been. And my friends and I felt that very strongly a few years ago, about 2019. You know, Glasgow was coming, COP26 was coming, we were in lockdown, and it was postponed for a year, but we kept thinking, what can we do? How do we make a difference? And so we wrote something called the COP26 Climate Action Plan in 2019. And when we wrote it, we got together, you know, environmentalists, Green Party folk, XR folk, and we said, why don't we think of something that's completely insane that they'll never do and ask for it so we can argue about it going forward? And we thought, why don't we say they're not allowed to build any more new fossil fuel projects? No more. No more oil rigs, no more coal mines, no more. Remember the conversation with my co-founder, Glyn, where he said, well, that's clearly completely mad. They're going to say that you want everybody to go back to living in caves, and no one's going to fall for that, Chidi. And I'm like, I don't care whether they fall for it or not. We should ask for it because it's right. You can't claim to be in transition if you're still building out an industry that's going to kill us all. You can't. And so we did. We wrote a letter called the COP26 Climate Action Plan. We published it, we put it online, and we thought, well, let's wait and see what happens. This is in 2019. COP was postponed. It was supposed to happen in 2021. In 2020, the unimaginable happened. The Spanish government approved a draft law asserting that they would no longer fund any new fossil fuel projects. I called up my friends, like, did you see what the Spanish government just did? And they're like, no, it's incredible. Months after that, the Danish government, Europe's biggest producers, the EU's biggest producers of oil and gas, also ruled they would fund no new fossil fuel projects. At this point, we were like, okay, so it's two rogue governments. You know, there's 27 others or 26 others. What could possibly happen next? We've got Glasgow to focus on. And then just before Glasgow, the IEA, the International Energy Agency, a body not known for leaning into what activists say, turned around and said their core path, the number one plan they saw for the world going towards 2050, had no new fossil fuel projects in it. And then, before we knew it, 3 years later, after Glasgow, the opposition party that sits in that house over there decided it was going to be its main policy objective where energy was concerned. That Britain soon would put an embargo on new fossil fuel projects. Now, I've told you these stories, and I've mentioned these things in the sequence they happened, because we are winning. We are actually winning. It won't be on the news. They won't say, XR are amazing. They've changed the world as we knew it. 4 years ago, these things couldn't even be discussed. Now they're in the mainstream. They won't tell you that, but these are the facts. This is the truth. Jojo, who spoke just now before me, along with her friend, Polly Higgins, started half a decade ago, Stop Ecocide International. And she didn't say this herself because she's so modest. But at the UN, at the ICC, and at the EU, there are working groups all discussing how to implement stopping ecocide internationally. Half a decade ago, that was impossible. It's happening now. Not only that, as we stand here today going forward, the US have implemented a gigantic Inflation Reduction Act, and the EU is discussing changing its 2040 targets and its 2030 targets, making them far more stringent, making us all globally as a family working towards ending the fossil fuel era. So I say again, the man you saw holding the billboard just now as he walked past said, the end of, I'm going to paraphrase him, the end of that world is coming. It is a source of celebration because we've achieved something that no one thought we could do. We've achieved not just rebellion, we're in the middle of achieving revolution. And it is to speak to that that I had to read out, at least paraphrase this poem that I have. It was written by a man called Václav Havel a couple of decades ago, and he read it out to groups of people like yourselves who at the time thought there was no way the system they lived under could change. They thought there was no way their fights, their words could be heard. They thought there was no way the powerful would yield, but they did. So let me, please, if you'll bear with me, read out part of this poem to you. The poem says, "It is I who must begin. Once I begin, once I try, here and now, right where I am, not excusing myself by saying things would be easier elsewhere, but being all the more persistent, to live in harmony with the world around me, understand it within myself. As soon as I begin that, I suddenly discover to my surprise that I am neither the only one, nor the first, nor the most important. I have set out upon this road, whether it would lead me to loss or whether it would lead me to life. But I have set upon this road." Thank you very much.